Hello and welcome to the Grow Patiently podcast, where we speak with fantastic healthcare people and learn all about their careers and their successes and the difficulties they've faced, both in careers and practice ownership. And today I'm really excited because we have Dr. Prashanth, and he is going to talk us through his career and hopefully give us many, many nuggets. Welcome.
Hi, mate. Thank you so much, Hugo. Nice to be here. I know we had a quick chat before. Yeah, I qualified in '98 in good old Liverpool in the old days of VT training and everything. And I went off. My first job was very interesting. So I qualified in December '98 because I failed finals. And then my first job was Maury, Delaney, and Scott. I hope they're still there in crew somewhere. And the contract was a handshake. I
Love
didn't
it.
have a written contract. And then he gave and the boss said, here's your tin of change, gave me a ledger and said, make sure you balance your books. On Monday morning, the nurse is going to be in this uniform at this set of traffic lights. Pick her up and go to work. And my first job was in the Rolls-Royce car factory in Crewe, what now is the Bentley. So that was my
Interesting.
first day. And I had to learn to balance my books. Not how did I do a filling, not how did I clean, to make sure the books balanced.
What a useful skill.
And that was my first day. But I think it was Mr. Scott. He was an amazing guy. Gave me a lot of help later on. But that was how I started. Then I did VT like the rest of the UK grads, and in St Helens. I'm from Liverpool up north, so and that's how I started. And then in the year 2003, everyone kept saying the grass is greener, and off I went to Australia, my friend. Went to a really nice guy in Newcastle, and then things soured a little bit because it was not what I thought it was. Then I worked in Sydney and Manly and stuff like that. So I had a beautiful time out there. Returned to UK to Leicester, which, funnily enough, I heard you're from.
Yeah.
And then I worked there on the National Health for 7 years, and then the UDA system kicked in. So I was finding it tough, man. Like there's one story which I am going to put on my LinkedIn later on, later on this week or next week. I remember doing on a patient 3 crowns, about 3 root canals, 4 or 5 extractions, tons of fillings. And then I went to the corner shop to get my lunch. And there's him with his 1.5 liter bottle of Coke about to swig it. And I got paid 12 UDAs, whether you do one filling, 3 crowns, whatever, root canals, everything, it's just 12 UDAs at that time. And my UDA was £20 a unit, £240 before the split, before the and there he is drinking this bottle of Coke. And I said to him, mate, do you know that I've spent, and I did spend 6 to 8 hours doing all this treatment. It wasn't like one shot, 30-minute job. I said, a plumber gets £50 call out from your treatment. After all the deductions and lab bills and everything, I've not even made 50 quid. I mean, actually, I'm in negative. And the practice is negative. And the guy did the honorable thing. He took his Coke bottle, 1.5 liter bottle of Coke, and put it in the bin. And that's when I decided, I think it's time to leave. I Brexited before Brexit became famous.
And why don't you tell the people where you're at now?
Right now I'm in Singapore, sunny Singapore. Nice place, 50 by 20, as I tell everyone, 50 kilometers in width and 20 in length. It's a nice little city state, safe. It was also at the time when Lee Rigby and all that stuff was happening, so it's a good time to leave. I had young kids. So right now in Singapore, enjoying private dentistry because there's only private dentistry. There's very little NHS or Medicare or Medisafe dentistry. Um, and it's fee per item compared to the whole NHS UK system of UDAs. So yeah, I've been here for 13 years. In between, I owned a practice. That's another story for another day. But yeah, I left that. Now I'm back to being an associate with a wonderful man called Dr. Tan, who looks after me.
Yeah, so you've really had such a wide career, obviously a long career in terms of years and all over the place. Amazing.
Yeah,
I think probably the first question I'd like to ask you is what would be your advice to the younger generation, shall we say, people who are coming up in healthcare and dentistry now, and the way that you see it changing for them, what kind of things can you offer them as a bit of guidance?
I think dentistry is literally long term. You've got to just remember that dentistry is not a short-term fix. It's not the one crown or a smile makeover. I think what I've seen, especially since I've done it for 27 years, and what I'm seeing now is everyone wants to be a veneer specialist, or everyone wants to do implants, or everyone wants to do wisdom teeth, especially in Singapore. They do a lot of this stuff. They come out of the university and they're straight into implants and um, wisdom teeth. I still haven't done a wisdom tooth surgery. I've done three in 27 years. Not that I'm not trained to do it. It's just, I just feel some things we should just leave alone. You know, veneers, I'm quite happy to do, but if you want to keep a patient, and I've got patients who are still following me 13 years later in Singapore, and I've got a patient who flies in from the UK just to see me for clean, and Dubai and Indonesia. They just fly in to see me because they met me out here, and they're my long-term patients. That is changed. People are always looking for that smile makeover, smile makeover. Um, and it's tough because once you finish that, all those veneers, unless they're in maintenance phase, they're not going to come back to you. And when things go wrong, and inadvertently things do go wrong, you're in trouble because you're the guy who touched it, did all this huge smile makeover, and the patient who's overseas will suddenly come back and point a finger, or in Singapore, point a finger at you. And I think long-term care is what we should look at. How do you find things, Hugo? Like you help a lot of practices build stuff, right? Is it the short-term game you see out there in UK or?
Well, yeah, I think it's such an interesting point. I was going to chime in myself. So yeah, thanks for bringing me in. I mean, it's more about you, but the way that I see it is that everyone seems to be really, really hungry for the
Hmm.
big revenue ticket treatments at
Yeah,
the front, and that is a business model that definitely can work.
yeah,
But what I'm seeing, and especially now with the
yeah,
economic difficulties that people are facing, is
yeah,
that it's a bit like the thin end of the wedge. You know, when you just let people come in, people who are nervous about cost, loads of people are really nervous about dentistry
yeah,
anyway, and you just let them know they can come in, and you just show them their options. You'd maybe just do a small thing here, a small thing
yeah,
there. You know, ultimately, all businesses know that the lifetime value is usually far greater, you know,
yeah,
compounds over all that time
yeah,
compared to one initial hit. So it'd be
yeah.
far better to have someone on a small treatment to start with, who then comes back, tells all their friends, tells their family, and you've got sort of a group of 20 people coming for 30 years.
Yep, I agree with you. I feel people should go back to that basic thing. When we qualified in the late 90s, we're always told a patient is for life. You know, try and keep them, retire with them, or pass them on to the associate when they buy you out. Nowadays, in the corporate takeovers and everything, I think clinics don't, I've not seen many clinics which are like been there 20 years or 30 years with the same person, and then they're their associates taking over. That used to be the old, whether it's old, I shouldn't say old, I'm still young, I feel. um, whether it's that, I don't know if that's like this. Now everyone just seems to sell onto a corporate and it's just a patient list. It's no more a bond. I think, and now if we do the maths correctly, and I know you're into this building patient bases for people with your advertising and everything else and helping people, and it's very commendable what you do. Most money's made on a clean and polish checkup, some x-rays, and some fluoride work. Because all you're paying for is the water, the electricity, and your nurse. And there's nothing to guarantee. And if you do a good job, and I don't know how much they charge in the UK for this, but for example, in Singapore, if it's like $250 for all these items, and you see five to six patients a day, you're already up. You're up to what's $1,500 a day, 5 days a week, 7,000. Is that right? Yeah, 7,000 something.
The maths off the top of my head is not necessarily my strong point, but yeah, it's definitely a model that's successful. I mean, it's not to say that the other side doesn't work, because of course it does.
Yeah,
You can be a practice that solely does full mouth restorations, and that's like your main piece of work. That can also work, but
that
it's
does,
really interesting.
but then you have to guarantee it that it doesn't fail.
Mm.
This is easy revenue every 6 months.
I suppose it depends what kind of practice that you want to
Yeah,
set up.
yeah,
Um,
I do.
I
I think you're right.
I
Like
think
all
while
this,
we
when I
go on.
qualified, right, we never heard of nanofill technology. We never had scanners. We never had half the stuff we have now. And I don't know if technology has led us to a certain way how we practice dentistry, or if we are leading dentistry or using technology to benefit us. This is something, which is intriguing me.
Yeah, do you want to elaborate more? That sounds interesting.
The reason is, right, when you have so many things you didn't have in the old days, right? Labs would take 2 weeks to do things. For example, a smile makeover, you'd take impressions, send it to the lab. Now everything's digital. You scan, you can program it, you have exocad, you have all these systems, right? And in that, I find people are not willing to wait. Whether I'm not talking about dentists, I'm just talking about generally consumers are not willing to wait. Gone are the days of patience. I want it now. The instant generation, Instagram, I want it now. Everything's instant within 30 seconds. Now with I use a lot of iTero, and you can do smile with exocad. You can do smile makers right there within half an hour, 40 minutes. You can have everything designed to show to a patient. That, when I qualified, didn't exist.
Hmm. So how do you make sure that you are leading it as opposed to being led by it then?
I think it's in the patient. You've got to convince your patient that, look, yes, this could be beautiful, but you're not ready for it. Let's get the foundation of the house correct. What's the point of putting the mansion on, a beautiful mansion, and then it just starts sinking? You got gum disease or you got decay, but you're putting all these nice veneers. And I'm not saying, by the way, for everyone watching this, I'm not saying anyone's unethical. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just talking in general with Hugo on this topic. You'll see these cases, you'll do these cases without planning the foundations. And I think to me, the foundation has to be perfect, you know, and then only you can do all this. And I think your way of saying it is like, do the small things first correctly, build up trust, and then do the big things. And those patients will be with you for a lifetime.
Mhm. Funnily enough, I think this would be a nice segue into practice ownership because it really chimes with one of the beliefs I have about building a practice
Yeah.
is it's all about building the foundations. But what a lot of people want to do is they want to sort of aggressively market a particular treatment that they feel will give them the biggest return.
Yes.
Whereas what I typically suggest is the most prudent approach, bearing in mind you're trying to actually create something for the long term, is to build everything from the ground up, make sure that everything is set up and you have everything going steadily, and then you can go for that final step.
I totally agree with you. I had my own practice. We built it on the child. We built it around the child because if you do children's dentistry well, mum will like you, mum will come. And automatically she will tell her husband, look, we all go here, go there. I think family dentistry is the way forward. Yes, there are practices and there are people who are not good family dentists. They are very good at implants and very good at smile makers and very good at Invisalign, ortho. Yes, those practices can exist and they do make a lot of money. But what happens when you finish all those patients? So in Singapore, for example, wisdom teeth surgery is quite popular. So, but what happens when all the wisdom teeth are taken out and that population, there's nothing left? You still have to do the basic dentistry. So to me, right, one of the things I found when I owned a practice, I didn't have business skills. You know, no one taught me about Google. We all knew Google we all knew Google's where you put something in and you find out where's your nearest practice. No one told me about SEO. No one told me about what is patient acquisition. What does it mean? For marketers, patient acquisition means, hey, I got the phone to ring for you. For a layman like me who had no business sense, I'd be like, patient acquisition means bum on seat. It doesn't mean my phone rang and my reception didn't convert.
Mm.
And all these things, I think when we go from associates to principals, we see the principals with the flashy cars, the big houses, and we think, oh, he's getting 50% of my money. I'm going to do this. We're not ready. If you have one of the things dental school definitely lacks, and they teach us beautiful skills. They teach us how to be good dentists. They teach us ethics. They teach us how to do techniques well, and how to be patient and kind and everything else. They don't teach us basic finance. They don't tell you like how much does anything cost. All you see is your principal going, oh, and you complain. I was an NHS dentist. Oh, my principal doesn't buy me this composite. I did it. I was guilty of it. When I started buying it, I was like, oh my God, this costs this much. You know, oh my God. And that's when we soon realize, right, the skills we have as dentists, which we come out of dental school, is not enough to make us cope with the world out there. You know, no one told us about EBTA. What is EBTA? even now I'm still confused. Like, how do you calculate how much a practice is worth? What is
Yeah.
gross profit? What is net profit? What is this much? And how much can we write off? And how much can we make it a loss making to avoid taxes for the next year? No one teaches these basic skills. And this is what you need, unfortunately, to run a business. You need to know SEO. You need to know what keywords you should bid on. You should know, like, how much is that keyword worth? And is it really worth? Do you bid for your own name? Do you bid for your own practice? Because other practices are bidding for it. Mate, without people like you guiding us, I think we'd be in a downward spiral. We wouldn't know what to do.
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah, I think the finance element of business, that is it's really important. I mean, from my history, I think I've mentioned it a few times, but I used to be a history teacher. And the kids at school always used to say that we don't learn basic finance and we don't learn this and we don't
Yeah.
learn that. So it really happens everywhere in schools as well. And actually, I found within teaching, you could be an excellent teacher, for example, in classrooms, but
Yeah.
then invariably they want you to then go up into management and assistant head teacher and whatnot. It's a
Yeah.
totally different skill. Then you're kind of running a business in a sense as well. So I feel like that happens everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
what did you do when you set up your practice and you suddenly were realizing how much you needed to learn? What did you do to start to learn those key chunks?
Well, I wish I went and learned business skills. Instead, I had to learn on the job itself, right? So someone asked me, "What's your title?" I said, "Oh, I'm CEO, CTO, CFO." And they said, "What are they? Oh, so you're chief executive officer, you're chief finance officer." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. Chief electrical officer. When the power trips, I need to know which button I need to push back up." And they went, "What's CTO then? You do all your website?" I said, "Yes, I did do my website, and I did." I said, "No, it's chief toilet officer. When that gets blocked, you need to know who to call or how to unblock it. Or when you have a flood in your clinic, you need to know how to make sure which plumbing bit you should turn off." And CFO was the best bit. And they said, "Oh, finances, you must." I said, "No, I have an accounts lady who does the finances. It's called chief firefighting officer. It's what happens when you have a bunch of staff who are all each other's necks and you need to stop and calm everyone down." So these are all skills we're not taught in dental school. You have to learn it on the job, or if you're lucky and you've got some, I'm sure there's some like this Nilesh Palmer. There's some big guys out in UK, who, like Jazz Gulati, the singing dentist. I don't know his name, but I see. I'm sure they have processes in place, and they've learned, and they've had great mentors. And I think this is where, if you want to open a business, go ask your principal all the questions you wanted to learn, especially about how to run a business. If he's not willing to teach, now Hugo, I've been out of the UK for 13 years. Are there courses you can go on?
Yeah, there definitely are. I think, obviously I don't have a dental business myself. So the kind of people that I seek for advice are the people who have businesses that are like me. And
Hmm.
I'm obsessive about it. I try to find people who are just a bit ahead of me, people who are
Yeah.
way ahead of me, and people who are way ahead of me. And then I have them all stacked up and I use them in different occasions for different questions. But yeah, there definitely are a lot of dental coaching programs and they can certainly help. I think
Yeah.
what you said about just reaching out to a principal that you think is successful is a powerful tool.
What's the worst case scenario? I feel he's going to say no. That's it, right? I'm not going to teach you. Well, then that's it. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? That's the saying, right? Is that right?
That is the saying. And if you don't ask, you don't get.
You don't get, yeah. The next thing was I found having a good team with you. And this is the most basic thing, whether you're an associate with your nurses and reception, or you are a principal or you're a business owner. Everyone has to be on the same page, man. If you and me were dentists, or you and me were both in marketing, and you were the boss, and you were trying to do your thing, and I was trying to do my thing, when the consumer or the client or the patient comes to that clinic, they'll be like, "Hang on, room one does something different, room two does something different." It doesn't make sense. And people talk. What happens is when you come to billing at that front desk, and everyone has that same front desk where everyone can hear everything, and you see different prices and different things, and neighbors talk. "Oh, I go to Prashanth, or I go to Hugo. Oh, but Hugo did this and he only cost me this much. Oh, I saw Prashanth in the same practice. Oh, but he didn't do that. It hurt." And that's why it's very important. You need like-minded people who will listen to the principal. The best advice I got was from my friend here out here called Mohan. He said, whatever room one does, make sure room two does, and whatever room two does, make sure room three does. And that stayed with me. The day I opened my practice, that was his first advice. He said, make sure everyone is on the same page. Make sure all your receptionists know the same thing. Everyone is on the same page. And you need to find like-minded people. In any practice, in any business, we get the people who are excited like me to do anything, and there's people who are a little bit more reserved. Make sure you're all one unit. And there's no point. One thing I find which destroys businesses is when you start doing whisper campaign against each other and having politics and toxic work culture, because you cannot keep a team together. And when the team is not together, your front desk, I tell everyone this, more than your nurses, more than your dentists, your front desk, pay them the most because they're the meter greeter and people will always remember the front desk. So I used to pay my front desk a lot more than my nurses. Sorry, ladies. But we even did that with bonuses and everything. They everyone end up on a similar wage. But I paid the basic pay, the front desk more because they were, please, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Thank you, sir. And that because they're the first port of call and they're the face of your practice, not you, as much as I'd love to say I'm the face of the practice. No, I'm not. They're the face of the practice. Having them on your side, now, whether it's you're an associate working for someone, I'm not saying have them on your side, but be polite to them, treat them kindly, and you will find you will thrive wherever you are. So that was the biggest thing. It was like making sure the team stayed together and you all had the same vision to go somewhere. What you didn't want is, oh, but what if I don't get a bonus? And in Singapore, it's bonus heavy. Yeah, you need to pay bonuses. And I'm not sure how it works in the UK business wise because I was an associate. I didn't look into business in the UK. You have to pay bonuses. There's a 13th month guaranteed bonus. And unfortunately, staff all talk. So for $50, people will leave. And you might be like, oh, that was just $50. Why didn't you ask me? But you've got to be, as a business owner, got to make sure you know what you're doing. And if it's just for a matter of $50 and she's worth it and she doesn't give you much pain, much better to give her the raise and give her the 50. So they were the main things, man. That's how to survive for the long haul, I feel. If you want to really have a business which is you. And don't forget, not everyone's going to be like you. I'm hyper. I accept that. Not everyone's going to be hyper. But you need the business and you need your dental practice to be a little bit lively. You can't have it like the old days, classic FM
Mm.
and quiet and serious tones. Because when there's no laughter in a practice, um, people leave. And this is what I found out. How I found this out was very simple. Most of my Google reviews used to be, there's always fun at that practice. They always play EDM, they always play high intensity music. We used to laugh a lot. And that's what people said. And that's how I built from a squat practice from zero. I didn't take any patients from anywhere I worked to 8,800 on exit. From a $0 turnover to 2 million on exit turnover. Took us 7 years, including COVID, but we did it. And we survived the COVID years. So it is possible. But it has to be, everyone has to be on the same page. And the last team I worked with were amazing. They would walk through fire for me and I would walk through fire for them. They were just, you ring them. And Singapore, unlike UK, there is no cutoff. Patients will WhatsApp you 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So not for an emergency. Oh, can you make me a family appointment? My girls would go do it. And thank you to everyone who I worked with. They were amazing people.
Yeah. What? Well, congratulations. You must have so many epic stories that we can't really dive into in the
Not today.
time. Yeah. But I'm really interested in the team element because I totally agree with you. And when there's a shared vision, it makes
Yeah,
a huge impact. What I
yeah.
wanted to ask you was, do you think it's having that's what people often call it a North Star? Do you think it was having the North Star that helped the team be bound together? Or do you think there's more of a relationship play? Um, I know lots of people have different leadership styles. What did you feel was the the main factor for you in binding the team?
Empathy, really. You've got to, so everyone knows I have a certain amount before I snap. but that rope is quite long. Now, the English saying is, if you give enough rope, you'll hang yourself, right? So I let them hang themselves and stuff. If you berate someone, they're not going to change. But if you let them just hang themselves and they'll go, oh God, I made a mistake, it's much easier to bring them back into your fold. Empathy was the biggest thing. They knew when I stopped talking and I'm stopped laughing and I just give them, they call it the Dr. P stare. So halfway through, I just give them like, look. And it's like you give to a child, I think, personally. I think it's what my dad used to give me. So it's just a stare. I'd stop talking, just give them a stare. They knew they pushed that boundary and they knew there's a patient in the chair that, or there's people in the waiting room we can't talk this, but they know they've gone too far. Um, you should have a vision. The vision should be clear, and whatever noises you're hearing from your friends saying, "Hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Oh, you should open longer if you're not making money." So in Singapore, it's one of the countries which started the 9 to 9 dentists. So we open at 9, we close at 9 p.m. and we work 7 days a week. And it's like just keep going, because if the patient doesn't come to you, he'll go next door.
Mm.
And it's that mentality. And I said, guys, we're doing 9 to 5s. We're doing 2 9 to 9s because we need to keep with the thing. We are not working Sundays. All public holidays are off. We will pay you the same amount, like top wages, but you're going to have all these hours off. And I gave them a lot of leeway. I made it Google, as I call it. I made it like a Google office. I said, look, this pantry, it's stocked. You want a break? Just let me know you're going for a break, but don't take the Mickey, And when you treat people like adults and you treat them with respect, they give you a lot more. I always hired the front desk, not from the dental field. The nurses you have to hire from the dental field, or we used to train on the spot. We used to train them with senior nurses, but the front desk was never from the dental industry. The reason being, these guys have amazing ideas. Once you're in the dental industry, it's always recall this. I hired from a UK lady, initially Melissa Mitchell. I hired her, and she works for L'Occitane. She's back in the UK now, and she brought in all these systems from working as a manager in retail stores. And she put these, and my recalls, I had 95% recalls because of what she did.
Mhm.
So we'd email them. She came up with a system where she emailed 1 month before, 2 weeks before she'd WhatsApp them, 1 week before she'll remind them, and the day before, 2 days before she'll go, you know, I know I've chased you. And it's the way English was written is beautiful. Now, if you came from some of the systems I see, right, which are pre chat GPT, there's like, this is to remind you you have an appointment tomorrow. Like, I've got 4 messages saying the same thing. But hiring people who are not in the dental industry was one of the best things I ever did. Because my front desk were always not under pressure because they didn't know anything about dentistry. So when a phone call came in, they were like, empathy. And I told them, first thing is empathy. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear you got toothache. Have you taken some Panadol? As opposed to like, oh my, his book is full and we can't get you until next week.
Mm.
And let me find an appointment. Even if we were free, the first statement we'd use is, let me find you an appointment. It's a full book, even if we were free. We were never free, to be very frank, because the girls were so good. I was booked up for 2.5 weeks with fee-paying patients private, which is it's a private system. My associates were booked for 2 weeks, but we never had emergency slots, but we would always see what procedure we can move around or what patient we can talk to, saying, hey, we have an emergency. Can we book them around you? And if you talk openly with your patients, I found patients are willing to comply. And say you were waiting for half an hour because I was late, I'd come out personally. It wouldn't be my nurse's job. I'd come out personally and sit with you and say, Hugo, I'm so sorry for this. This is what's happened. I wouldn't say the patient's name or the procedure. I'd say, I'm really sorry. And I did it from my heart, man. And I think if you do anything from your heart, your team will follow with their hearts. If it's like, oh, do you remember Little Britain? The computer says no. Joke.
Yeah.
If you follow that way, the team is not going to be with you.
Mm.
That was the thing. So
I
I don't
think
know.
that front desk idea that you had about hiring outside of dentistry, I haven't heard people particularly talk that much about that kind of thing. But what I do hear a lot of is people thinking that the front desk is. I think they undervalue it. They don't understand that that's the first impression that anyone gets, both on the phone and physically. And as
Yep.
someone who actually goes to the dentist to be a patient, outside of the work that I do with healthcare practices, I really feel it. When I
The,
moved to a new area, I went to a new practice, I thought, okay. And then when I went in there, I just thought, this is not for me, really.
I, I'm going to tell you something, right? I bought this fairly expensive coffee machine from Switzerland, but it's sold in Singapore, right? I forget the name of the brand, right? And so, uh, when I remember it, I'll tell you later what the brand was. But I bought this fairly expensive coffee machine. All you have to do is press a button. And when I hired associates, I said to them, "Can you make a coffee?" And I would hire if you said, "Yes, I'm happy to go make a coffee." Not for me, not for the associate, but for the patient. And I started talking about my coffee machine and my comfortable sofa and all these practices which had existed before me, expensive, high-end practices, all started taking photos of the coffee machines and things. I started talking about family dentistry when I opened my clinic. I didn't invent the wheel, family dentistry. It exists in the UK, it exists in Australia. All it was family dentistry, a big corporate center circle around. We need to get away from corporate dentistry and look chasing the corporates. We need to talk more about family dentistry. Another clinic overnight removed the signage and changed it into family dentist. Now, then I know it made a difference. All I did was kept talking about family dentistry in my first month of opening, put family photos on the website. And that made me realize I have something here. And everyone started talking, and I made the coffee. You know why? Going to, what do we say? Coffee is bad for your teeth, but everyone drinks it. Now, if I sit with you in a coffee and we give you an iPad to do your registration, or my girls, I told my girls, do not stand above the patient, kneel next to the patient. It's gone from power, it's gone from like, oh, the receptionist, the surly receptionist or the surly dentist to like, hey, Hugo, we're on level with you. Actually, I told my girls, kneel, sit next to them, or we had a rug so they could, while they type in all the, on a low sofas, low tables, so they could type it all in and fill in your details. Most people went, we like this, that the girls actually serve us. And I showed everyone how to make the coffee. And in their thing, we had your photo in our CMS system. We had your photo and we had Hugo likes a latte. So
Great.
when Hugo comes in, like the girls were always told, never be down looking down because the computers were a little bit lower and we always sat them higher. Always look out the front door. So when you came in, hi, Mr. Hugo, good to see you. Would you like your latte? I've got you as a patient.
Mm.
And
How
that
interesting.
we used to serve sugar with it.
You know,
Look, and
I wanted to ask you the first question when I started, but we just kind of dived into your history, was that uh, should I be drinking coffee and tea out of a straw? Because my wife makes me, well, she doesn't make me do it, but she really pushes me to do it for staining and things like that. So I'm drinking coffee out of a straw. Maybe
mate,
that's ridiculous.
I just drink it. Just look, I drink Coke. I'm being honest, I'm a bad dentist. I eat chocolate. Who am I?
1.5 liters.
Not 1.5 liters, but I did have a 500 milliliter Coke Zero to get prepared for this. But on a separate note, it's like, we tell people don't do this, 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 but we all go do it.
Mm.
So I became that dentist who's like, yeah, you want to eat chocolate? Feel free to eat chocolate, but eat it in moderation. That's what I always said. Everything in moderation. And that's what all doctors tell. If you actually take out all the stuff, right? All of them are always saying is do it in moderation. Don't do 1.5 liters every day because you're going to give me stumps of teeth left. But we used to serve coffee and people remind, and even now, even though I don't work there anymore, and people see me in the street and they'll go, hey, Dr. P, your latte was the best. But you know what the secret was to the latte? We used to get the beans fresh every Monday, roasted, freshly brought in by courier, and we used to serve this coffee. We made no money, mate. I'm telling you, there were days I was in the red thinking, this was the stupidest idea I've ever had. I'm going to go broke. I'm going to be in debt and I'm going to go bankrupt. But the coffee saved us.
Wow. Well, it seems like you really thought outside the box. And I think it's great. It's quite inspiring, really, because for someone who, as self-proclaimed, had little understanding of business, what you did there was what a lot of the business books talk about, which is find some sort of specific area that's going to be about who you really are, and then provide that experience for people. so that
Yeah.
they can feel it and actually tell others about it. Because I think what a lot of people in healthcare do is they just say that they're the very best and they say that they have X, Y, and Z experience, but that's not really a human connection. Whereas what
No.
you did was think, we're going to get people who are not from dentistry, we're going to get this coffee thing going, we're going to do all these different bits that help people feel a certain way. And then
Yeah.
that's what they felt your practice was about, as opposed to just like, I'm going to get the best implant or I'm going to get the best filling.
That's one thing I never said. I've always never said I was the best at anything. And I never said it. I'll give you good treatment. I'll give you to the best of my ability. If there was something I didn't know, I'd say, look, this guy's the best. Go see him. I'll look after you for your general clean and polish if that's what you want. And people respect that. There's one more thing I did have. Singapore's very hot and humid. We had two wine fridges, mini wine fridges. We used to put water in them, and people used to like. They used to come in instead of having the those water things where you just fill in yourself. We used to get the girls to go around the front of the desk and they'd be like, "Doc, but we have to get out, go around the front, give them a bottle of water, and go back to sit down." I said, "Yeah, do it." And people like service. People like customer service. And that's what we did. We delivered customer service. If you do good customer service, and some of the best dentists I know, right, and I've seen in my 27 years, did really bad dentistry, but they were so good at customer service. They never had any complaints. There was an old guy when I went to crew, when I first qualified, fresh out of, dental school, and I know all the angles and this and that. He'd leave decay and put glass ionomer fillings in. Patient come back with toothache, but never complain about him. They loved him. And I've seen that in Australia, I've seen it in Singapore. They don't care if you did not do the job properly, but they do care if you're rude to them. It doesn't matter how good your prep was or how clean your clinic is and how perfect you are at everything, you will get a complaint.
Mm.
The way I built the practice, again, sorry, so sorry, just to finish off on this topic, was I never said I knew everything. I always used to outsource my implants, my wisdom teeth surgery, send it away. And this is what people in certain countries are afraid of. If they go to another clinic, will they come back? To me, that never bothered me. I'm like, if I lost the patient, and I told my staff this, I'm not worried if you lose patients. Don't lose patients because of bad behavior or being impolite. If you lost the patient, it was never ours to begin with. If they went for $50 cheaper or $200 cheaper, let them go. I'm not worried about them. Be polite all times, be good at your job, and keep smiling because you know what? They will come back. And we've had staff who left, try to come back. We've had patients who left and go, oh, I had such a bad experience. I literally have 6 people. No, I have 12 people, and I moved practices since I left the business. Um, they still come to my clinic and they fly in from London, they're flying from Dubai, they're flying from Bali, and there's one from Sydney. They come in and go, we only come here just to do the dentistry because we don't have a good experience with where we've moved to. I'm like, you fly the whole distance for, but the business people, so they tie it in with their, when they're into Singapore, they don't, and one or two will just because Bali's not far, they'll just get on and say, doesn't matter, we're here, but, and that's what makes a brilliant story and a brilliant practice.
Well, that's your modesty there, but it sounds like what they're really coming for is the experience, and it does make a big difference. I mean, it's a small thing, but at my barber, I go to the complete other side of town to go to it, so it's actually quite an effort to do it. And I really like the lady who cuts my hair, but they've recently got a new owner, and everything's kind of changing. They've obviously got themselves into marketing, and they're sending me a million text messages with reminders, tons of stuff, trying to take deposits from me. And I'm like, I've been coming here. I don't want... Anyway, the main thing that's really been getting me is that when I arrived there, they don't do the sparkling water anymore. They're like, do you want sparkling? What would you like to drink? I say, oh, I like sparkling water. They say they don't do it anymore. I'm like, oh. And it sounds so ridiculous because obviously it's ridiculous. But in my head, I'm thinking that's one of the things I quite enjoy about going there.
Yeah, that's what I say. I say, look, at some stage, right, money was tight for me. It was like $0 coming to $0, and the banks were like on my phone, like, blowing it up, going, how are you going to pay this bill? I was like, don't stop the coffee, don't stop the water. Whatever we do not substitute the water. Do not get a cheaper brand. Just get the same one from Coca-Cola we get. Dasani, I think, is made by Coca-Cola. I wonder if we get plugs, we get all this money from them. You go,
Yeah,
you know, use the same water. Do not change to a cheaper brand because patients will know there's something changing, something's happened here, and they will leave.
interesting. Well, Prashant, thank you so much for sharing all of
Yeah.
these gems. I know you have so many more stories, and I know that you share a lot of things on LinkedIn. So, any listeners, please do go and check out Prashant's LinkedIn. He's regularly posting funny stuff, insightful stuff. And if you are someone who is navigating healthcare careers or practices, then there's undoubtedly gems in there. So do head over. But other than that, just wanted to say again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Hugo. Hope you get that haircut, mate, with
Yeah,
sparkling
I know.
water. If not, do you think they'll give me a discount?